Hello everyone, this is Andres Restart, and today we are talking about that Mario Kart World Nintendo Direct. But no, we're not going to be going at it from the angle of this Direct being an underwhelming presentation. A lot of people are talking about that today, and I'm not even saying I disagree. I do think we had high expectations going into this presentation. We had already learned a lot about this game, and so we thought we might learn even more that would continue to shock and blow us away. And at least at first glance, that was not the case, so I understand where some people are coming from here. However, I think when you take another look, a deeper dive into what was shown, there's actually quite a bit that was revealed or hinted at that's very exciting about this game. And so come June 5th, I think there's going to be even more things that people perhaps were not anticipating that are going to be very enjoyable, very exciting, perhaps even surprising, and that's going to be an exciting time. And hopefully, by that time, June 5th, I do reach my goal of 50,000 subscribers, so if you do find yourself enjoying my content, your subscription would be greatly appreciated. But yes, today we are going to be focusing on diving deeper into this Direct and pointing out every big deal that was confirmed or hinted at that perhaps people have kind of glossed over or not realized. And here I am, jumping on camera to share a message about today's sponsor, Tomtoc and their Switch 2 carrying cases. You got black, you got gray, and I got one more over here that I really like. It's the white one. It's great. There's a really awesome little handle here, as the others also have, and of course, yes, it can fit a Nintendo Switch 2. So if you're curious about these Switch 2 cases, there will be a Discord link in the description below so you can get more information as it becomes available. So let's first talk about how they confirmed Classic Grand Prix and more. So yes, Classic Grand Prix will make their return. And what I mean is, during the versus race mode, you can set it up so you can play the Grand Prix, these different tracks, with the typical 3-lap system as we've seen from prior Mario Kart games. It doesn't just have to be where you just do the first race 3 laps and then everything else is just one single route passing all the way through to the end. So it's great to have that confirmation. It's great that we have that option to play the game in different ways. But something else I found very interesting is that they made mention that you could play different routes. You can create different routes that cannot be found through the Grand Prix or Knockout Tour, which means there's actually an even greater level of variety to our races here. Through Versus, we can customize and create our own different styles of Grand Prix, and that's going to be a really grand, big, good time. I wonder if we go so as far as turning it into an all-cup tour, or perhaps that could be an unlockable later on. And on the note of cups, we haven't gotten it confirmed yet that we will be seeing a special cup, because currently for the Grand Prix we only have 7 cups, typically we have the 8. However, they strongly tease in Rainbow Road. They say that when you beat all the Grand Prix, there will be a new track unlocked, giving us a total of 30 tracks, which is something we expected because Nintendo of Korea leaked it on the website Rainbow Road. But it's nice to see that Nintendo themselves in this Direct in official capacity is teasing this other track here, which means there's going to be at least one more Grand Prix. And what I also find interesting here is that they actually have like a cutscene. Like there's a little bit of more cinematics here, which they don't normally do for unlockables. And that kind of gives me some hope that there might even be more unlockables in this game. To what extent, we'll talk more about that later into the video. But let's move on to the next big confirmation in this Direct, and that's missions. Now I think a lot of people glossed over this, in part because they were hoping there would be like a separate story mode. But this is basically what we've been hoping for, missions. So they actually confirmed that the P-switches create different types of obstacles or missions. And it's not just blue coins. I had theorized before this Direct that when you would hit the P-switch, they would give you obstacle courses that you would have to kind of race through and gather all the blue coins. And that is the case. But the blue coins are just part of the variety of challenges here. There are different kinds. As we see Waluigi here, he's doing something different from just collecting blue coins. So there's an implication that there will be a variety of different styles of missions. And they say there will be hundreds of them, which means more than 100 missions will be scattered throughout the free roam map of this game. So mission mode has come back from Mario Kart DS essentially. It's just not in its own separate mode, but rather in free roam scattered throughout, which gives us more to do within this giant open world. But it goes beyond that because they also show off these special tokens and the item blocks that you can land on. And these are also things we expected because we saw them hinted at from the UI, from the treehouse segment and such. But they also say that there's even more on top of these 3 different collectibles, the P-Switch challenge missions, the item blocks you find on the floor, or these coins. What is that more? That part remains a secret, and I think that's another hint towards that there are going to be different things we will find in this game when we play it day one. They're not going to reveal literally everything about this game before it comes out. I think that would be foolish. Why would you spoil your entire game? During the missions though, it looks like we're going to be able to use our carts in different ways, and this may require better use of the new revamped trick system. And so they go into a little bit more detail on how the trick system works. There are new tricks, and what they really focus on is the charge jump. So the charge jump, as they talk about during the direct, you hold your drift button, which usually just causes a hop, and if you tilt left or right, you start drifting left or right. If you do it without tilting in one direction or another, you hop down into the ground and you start creating sparks, but you're building up energy to jump. And you can jump in different directions. You can jump over cars, you can jump to dodge shells, you can jump onto walls or rails. And then from there you can combo off and jump in different directions, either onto other walls or rails or back onto the ground. And this can lead to a lot more options here. And so I think this is a mechanic that they're really going to lean on for the missions in different ways. Something we could never do in prior Mario Kart games. Now, something that's purely speculative, and I'm really not sure if it's going to be in there or not, are bosses. But I have speculated that there could be bosses, because you do see a lot of big, giant boss-like enemies throughout this game. And between the mission mode, which we now know is scattered throughout the free roam, and in Mario Kart DS there were bosses in the mission mode, and also because of this new trick system giving us more ways to move around and do different actions, there might be definitely a way to incorporate bosses. Perhaps in some of the missions, there will be some different sequences where we have to deal with some of these giant enemies, and the new trick system may play a role in how we handle them. Possibly this part is purely speculative, we shall see. I will say though that this is something that I could see them holding back on. I doubt they'll be holding back on an entirely new mode, but perhaps something like this, something within the mission mode they've already confirmed, might still be left up for reveal later on. Now, from all the footage we've seen in Mario Kart World leading up to this direct, we were already pretty much able to extrapolate everything we need to know about the items of this game, but they did confirm some things that we speculated on, but now we know for sure. So, Comic, as they pronounce it in the direct, does cause different characters to transform, but also causes a bunch of mayhem, including summoning different enemies to cause even more mayhem, but they also imply that there might be even more than that. So yeah, Comic is basically the random chaos item. But something else I saw, and this part was already expected. Yes, the food item causes you to unlock different characters that you only will use for a particular race, and once you get past that race in a knockout or a Grand Prix, you will be phased out of it. But yes, afterwards you can go back into the menu and select that costume if you've unlocked it through the food or through Comic. Either way, these unlocks can be caused. We've seen evidence of this from beforehand. But something neat that I noticed that they only showed during this direct is that sometimes you can gather the food bags more than once. You can gather 3 of them. They're basically like mushrooms, and with mushrooms you can get 3, except these foods will actually rotate around you sometimes, which is very interesting. And that might just come down to the aesthetic of the food, because we also see with Wario, they're just stacked behind him. So you can get more than one at a time, and we do see with Peach that there are more than one in the area. All the other items they talk about, like the ice flower, the coin shell, those are pretty self-explanatory. The feather is neat because we can also use that to combo with our trick system to get to different areas on the map, which sure can lead to different routes and different advantages there, perhaps dodging blue shells and other things. But perhaps what has excited me the most about this overall presentation is how Nintendo is handling the more casual features. So literally the most exciting part about this presentation for me is when we saw them talk about smart steering. And this is why I'm excited about it. I hate smart steering. Absolutely abhor it. I wish it didn't exist. That's not entirely true. I'm okay with it existing. But the reason I have so much disdain for this feature is because in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, they made it the default option. So whenever you had friends come over or family and they would jump onto Mario Kart 8 with you, they would be setting up a character and they would have the little antenna by default, and you would always have to tell people because they wouldn't notice that, hey, you got your smart steering on. So I always hated that, but here in the Direct, they show off the smart steering off initially, which means, at least presumably, that it will be off by default, which is actually a huge change, and I am so happy this is the case. The option is still there if you want it, but if you don't want it, that's awesome. This is kind of like when you go bowling, you don't want the bumpers up to the sides by default. You want to decide to add them later on if you think you need them. So I'm really glad they made this change. But another interesting feature that they have announced during this Direct is Rewind. And at first glance I thought, oh, okay, so this is kind of like for the people who continually make mistakes so they can fix their errors. You may have that option, and I'm glad they confirmed that you can do this, but this does not stop gameplay for anyone else. So you can do this in all sorts of scenarios, which is great. But what I think might be even better about this, though, is that yes, it could help people who struggle, but also it can help people who want to get even better at the game. And so let's say there is like a really cool trick you want to do, or there's a shortcut you're not sure you can get to or not. Through the rewind feature, you can repeatedly go at a particular obstacle or challenge or shortcut you think you might be able to get and test it out, as opposed to having to redo a race repeatedly here. And so this is a really good tool that's going to help people get really good at Mario Kart with a lot more speed. This is a wonderful quality of life improvement. Now, something I was a bit disappointed at first, but upon thinking about it a little bit more, I actually think it might be the best way to go about it, is battle mode. And also, by the way, time trials have been confirmed. I was really hoping time trials would still be in the game, and they are. But with battle mode, I was thinking and wondering that maybe they might incorporate it into the open world. And I was kind of speculating on different ideas that would be unique spins on battle mode within this open world game. But that's not how they're handling it. They literally just decided to create different new arenas for battle mode. It's separate from everything else. And so I was a little underwhelmed at first, but then I thought about it for a moment. I remember with the initial launch of Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, they didn't even have separate battle tracks. You could just do battle mode during the races. Like, you would just be placed on the track and you could do it there. And people didn't really like it that much. So with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, they actually added dedicated battle mode with actual full-on arenas for the battle mode. So I take it the Mario Kart team probably saw the error they made with the initial launch of Mario Kart 8, and they decided it was probably just best to create battle mode arenas for battle mode in Mario Kart World. And the arenas look pretty awesome. Gonna be honest, they look really cool. I might be a little bit more interested in jumping into battle mode this time with the online and game chat and all that cool stuff going on. And also, by the way, here are some screenshots that came out from the press release. I saw this on Twitter. There's actually a lot of different arenas. We don't know how many, but still, they look great. Now, something else that I was a little disappointed in seeing, but also, yes, of course it made sense, is that 4-player split screen, which they finally showed off during this Direct very briefly, runs at 30 frames per second. Not 60 like it does with 1 player or 2 players. Which I suppose is understandable. This is an open world environment, and in this day and age, increasingly more and more games don't even have split screen at all. So I guess I should just be happy that we have split screen and it's running at 30 FPS within an open world. And when the screen is split 4 ways, oftentimes people don't even notice the frame rate difference. However, I do want to point out there was also a report that some people had played this game at 120 frames per second. And so we saw no mention of a 120 FPS mode at any point during this Direct. And I find that interesting because we go back to the Switch 2 Direct and they really made sure to highlight that Prime 4 has a 120 FPS mode. Yet here, with the Mario Kart World Direct, still no mention of this supposed 120 FPS mode. Which brings me to my next point here. What's missing? Considering everything we've learned from this Mario Kart World Direct, what else is left that would be announced or will be seen when we finally get to play the game? And so I'll first speak on the 120 FPS mode. That might be something that we'll learn about either in previews or an overview trailer shortly before release, or just when the game comes out. And assuming the reports on this are true, I think this can go to show that there are still things about this game that we do not know about. Going back to this idea of the Special Cup or the Rainbow Road that was teased, that's something else that we are going to unlock in the game. Now, can there be more? Will there be more tracks or things like that that we can unlock? I do not think there will be any more tracks to unlock. I think Rainbow Road is the one track we will unlock. However, I think people are jumping the gun when they're saying, oh, Diddy Kong is not in the game. Maybe Diddy Kong is not in the game right now. That's possible. Perhaps later down the road, he will be added as free DLC. Let's remind ourselves that with Mario Kart 8, there were multiple times where they randomly added new characters to the game. The game legitimately has 3 times as much content as it did day one when you account for all the paid DLC and free DLC updates. There's really a lot that's been added over time. And so I don't see why that also can't happen with Mario Kart World. There may be more to come down the road. But that's just talking about free DLC. I still think there can be some unlockables. If we're going to be able to unlock the Special Cup, perhaps there is more to unlock. We already know that we're going to be unlocking different characters and skins or costumes throughout the experience. That part has already been confirmed. So why should we assume that they've already shown us all the different unlockables from the gameplay so far? I would assume that they're still hiding some things, because there should still be some surprises in the game. Consider this for a moment. The coins in Mario Kart 8 had 2 different purposes. One, they boosted your max speed, but also 2, the more coins you got, the more things you would unlock, such as vehicle parts, as you would progress. And in Mario Kart World, the coin count is double. It's went from 10 to 20. And on top of that, there are way more coins to collect throughout the map. We have the new coin shell. We also have these 3D item blocks that we can hit that create more coins on top of that. So there are just way more coins here to collect. What is their purpose? Maybe it also boosts max speed, but also maybe it does lead to other unlockables, perhaps like more vehicles. And something I'm left wondering about is Mirror Mode and 200cc. Mirror Mode has been a mainstay for many different generations of Mario Kart, so that feels like it's relatively safe to predict. And given that this is an open world where you can go at things from different directions, I feel like Mirror Mode should be fairly easy to set up there, so I'm not doubting the existence of a Mirror Mode Grand Prix. 200cc on the other hand might be a little bit more complicated to get set up, but 200cc has also been around for a little bit of a while. They added it to Mario Kart 8 as a DLC update, and then in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe it was available day one, and 200cc was also even in Mario Kart Tour. So I feel like 200cc has also become a mainstay in the Mario Kart series. I would just assume this is something you unlock later on. Again, there's got to be some things you can unlock, so after you beat all the tracks, you probably unlock the Special Cup, but after you beat all the cups and you beat 150cc, then you unlock Mirror or 200cc. So there are still things about this game they have not shown. I think when you consider it all, there's really a lot of content to enjoy here, and this is just a starting line. I'm excited, but what about all of you? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.